I'm worried that had the tippy taps of my dog. Would you pick a spot? Thank you for joining the Escape With Me Book Club. Escape with me, Sam Reiner.
And me, Danielle.
Into our most recent read. Come with us as we evade reality and go into detail about a new book. We'll be covering the book from beginning to end, so there will be spoilers. Today we are going to California, United States. Published in June 2012, The Age of Miracles is a blending of science fiction and a coming-of-age story. As the world around her goes through an invisible calamity, preteen Julia is experiencing the end of the world as well as middle school. But how well does the author blend the two genres? And what even is the slowing? So for background, this was a you pick.
Yes, always. All the books you hate are mine.
I don't hate all the books you pick.
80% of them.
But you just happen to pick a bunch of books you haven't read since middle school, so...
Well, this came out when I was a senior in high school, so I was old enough to know better, but I don't care. Something about these YA middle school, I don't know, it gets to me. This is my genre. Leave me alone. This is what I like.
Yeah, because this is a little bit... We'll talk about it in a second. I guess we can talk about it right now. I'm not really sure what age level to put it at.
The main character is 11, but it's being told basically from the perspective of her as an adult with the hindsight of being an adult while also still being 11.
Yeah, and so a part of me is wondering, it's not mid-lit, first of all. She may be 12, but it is not mid-lit. I don't think it's YA, and so I kind of just want to default to adult.
But it's not.
It's a coming-of-age story, so it shouldn't be, but I don't know, it's weird. I don't think the author...
She didn't know what it was supposed to be.
She just wanted to write purple prose.
I love it. I love purple prose, I think.
I think that's the whole reason you like this book.
I think that's why I like this book, guys. Figured it out. We're done.
But we'll get to that in a second. So content warning. Sorry, not even before because just looking at our content warning, the way some of the things are tackled in normal YAs and the way that the author tackles it makes me want to say it's adult.
Everything's so offhand the way stuff is said. Anything that's a grown-up topic, one of her friends is very, not sexually active, but yeah, kind of.
Yes, it is a yes.
And they're 11, 12 years old. Baby.
And it's just said, and then no one says anything about it. There's no judgment about it. Oh, that's a bad thing that happened. Nope, it just happened.
Yeah.
Not going to talk to anybody about that. Ugh. But, content warning. So we have animal death, childbirth death, blood, sexual assault, nudity, self-harm, death, and suicide.
Yeah, there's a lot. Lots of death in this one. When you put the content warning like that. Why do I love this book so much?
I have told you, I think you like it because it sounds pretty and not necessarily because you like it.
It feels realistic. As ridiculous of a book it is. It's the way she words things. I don't know. I love it. I don't care.
To go back even before that, this book is in the section of the bookstore, because I did find it one day when I was in the bookstore. It's in the section of the bookstore where it's just labeled fiction.
They didn't know where to put it either.
They didn't know where to put it either, because it's not in the YA section. It's not in any areas where a coming of age would be. It's not in the sci-fi section. It's just fiction.
That tracks. Yeah, that's where I'd put it too.
So, judge a book by its cover. I've seen two covers for it, and one is the silhouette of the face, and then there's a sunset and gold dots.
Yeah, that's the one I have.
And then there's one that's just blue with a bunch of yellow stars that actually makes it kind of look a little tacky. I'm not a fan of either of them, but neither of them really tell you what the heck is going on. Both of them, I am confused what would be in this book. The star one gives a little bit The Fault in Our Stars kind of vibe, which I kind of feel like the writer might have been trying to do. That kind of vein of a story, but she didn't do it well enough to get her own movie.
And now that you've said that, because I have seen that other cover, I had to go and look it up.
Yeah, that's a Goodreads cover.
It does feel kind of Fault in Our Stars, because that also had
tragic love.
A tragic love and sort of coming of age. They were older in that one than this one, obviously, but had a lot going on at home. Yeah, maybe that's what she was trying to shoot for. Did you know it originally started as a short story and then she's like, nah, I'm gonna write a book?
Everything I learn about the publication of this book is sketchy. We will get to that, but that does not surprise me.
Yeah.
It should have stayed a short story.
I'm kind of curious what the short story was. I bet it was that Martian. It talked about in this book, the one wherever they're on the moon or something, the little short story that's kind of famous.
Oh, where the kids are on Venus and they lock the girl.
She can't see the sun. Oh my goodness. They get the sun every 7 or 10 years or whatever, and this poor little girl gets locked in the closet by her classmates. I feel like that's what this short story had to have been. The vague premise of this book. She just clearly got a ton of inspiration from that, now that I'm thinking this through.
Honestly, it does come across of like, oh guys, this is also something. Very obviously, this is my inspiration.
She even quotes it in her own novel.
Which is weird. To just talk about the book, to really get into it, the way I note keep for this is I do some really detailed notes. But normal notes are in the typical black from typing it out. But when I have my thoughts, I'll put it in red. And my goodness, there might be more red notes than black.
Oh my goodness.
I had so many thoughts about this book.
Well, first of all, the vague premise of this book is that the Earth is flowing. The gravitational pull, everything, time is flowing.
Okay, and I do want to get this out because there is some confusion. Technically, it is not gravity is getting heavier, even though that's what it makes it sound like for most of the book.
Yeah, they can't play soccer or something.
Supposedly, there's a mysterious third force that is causing this slowing.
Ooh, scary.
And that is what everything is based around. But, like I said, most of the book, she makes it sound like gravity is what's making it slowing, and she doesn't actually know physics.
Well, and there's a real thing, because I had to look it up. It's called leap seconds, and they have happened as recently as 2016. Every couple of years, or for no apparent reason, we just add an extra second to our day. It's vague science, whatever. I can't explain it. It is slightly real, so I think she just got the concept. She maybe read a article or something.
She said her inspiration.
It's vaguely real. Not that this could happen, but not on the level she's talking about, or how quickly.
Her inspiration, because she does tell it, because the author wants very, very badly for everyone to think her science is legit. Really badly. Kind of defensive badly. Anyway, according to Wikipedia, the idea for the slowing first came to Walker when she read about the 2004 Indonesia tsunami, and apparently it had caused the Earth's rotation to slow by some fractions of a second. And this is the sentence. I wasn't going to get to this yet, but this is the next sentence.
We're here now.
Walker started researching the effects of more large-scale slowing, mostly on the internet.
Me too. I've also been vaguely searching on the internet. I can write a book about this now.
But also had it verified by an astrophysicist.
No, that's not true.
And the book that you had a interview with the author in the back of the pages, and I cannot tell you how much of the interview was, I put so much research into it, and it's totally possible, and everything makes sense, and it is so much. And then the interviewer is like, oh, there's this dude, and he's like, hey, realism's really important in stories. And she's like, I agree totally. That's why when I was writing this book, realism was the most important thing for me. And I'm just like, why do you care so much that everyone agree with you? It would have been one thing if this author was like, hey, just go with it. I have an idea. Let's see what this idea goes. Fair. That has been sci-fi since the dawn of time. But no.
This is fact.
You have to understand that this could totally happen. All of her science makes sense, guys.
No.
Even though she doesn't know the difference between gravity and inertia.
No, her science is so crazy. So it basically, and I'm on the first couple pages, in a single night, the days had grown by 56 minutes. So it adds almost an entire hour to the day, making it about 25 hours in a day. Overnight. Just some random day, the scientists are like, yep, the experts went public. 56 minutes in a night.
Bizarre.
And by the end of it, which that already is ridiculous, 56 minutes when up until this point in real life, which she doesn't live in, we've added maybe half of a second in the past 60 years. I don't know. I vaguely looked up science, so I can't quote anything real, but it's basically nothing. Literally nothing has changed in years, in centuries. And she's like, nope, overnight. Here's an hour.
And it's not even... Like, let's say she did that. That was the concept. The world is slowing. For some reason, we don't know why. Magic. The world is slowing. Okay, fine. 56 minutes. Great start. Okay, panic. Whatever. Half of the book, the content of the book, because I was reading the book and the entire time you're like, stop paying attention to science. Just read it for the story. And I'm like, I can't, because chapters at a time will just be the science.
Yeah, she definitely wanted to prove she talked to a scientist before.
And did a lot of internet research. Like, birds die, and there's no birds, but all the other animals are fine.
I mean, to be fair, birds know things before us. She makes some offhanded comment about, oh, the bees years ago, but we just didn't even care or notice. Like, yeah, there is a, in real life, thing about bees have been dying, whole swarms and hives and things. But she's just like, nope, that's backing up my science. The bees knew. The bees and the birds.
Yeah, I'm not really... Oh my gosh. I'm not really...
That was the joke. The birds and the bees.
I'm not really sure why. She just keeps dipping back into science, and it's just... Why?
Well, and by the end of it, the latest that we know that she is 23 years old. And at that time, at the very end of the book, the days are now weeks long. Sunshine for weeks, and then nighttime for weeks. She doesn't specify exactly how long, but the last recorded thing that she talks about, she's like, I'm just going to go be a doctor. Shut up, your dad was a doctor. Nobody cares. She just wants to prove how smart she is. But the author, I don't think, is very smart. And so her character is not very smart.
Her character is nothing, but that's beside the point. We'll get to that. Let's tackle all the sci-fi, and then we'll tackle the coming of age. That feels organized.
Fine. I'm already done with the science, so I don't care about it. I genuinely don't care. I skip it. It's a concept book to me. I think I talk about this every time we talk about books, but the Unwind series is ridiculous and crazy, and you just get on board with the science or you don't, and then just enjoy the book. That's what this is for me. I just completely black out all of the science because I don't care. I'm not a scientist. I'm never going to look anything up except for vague Google searches. Don't care.
Yeah, it's...
But you can rant about science. I'll let you go. Have fun. I know you are ready.
I just don't understand why. Like I said, she could have very easily made this soft science fiction, which is where, screw the rules, I have imagination. That's what soft science fiction is. That's where you get, oh, I'm walking around on Mars without a helmet on and talking to aliens. But hey, it's about the story, so just be cool with it.
Oh, yeah, whatever genre that is, that's what I like. Can I Google that and find books?
Yes.
They're going to lead me to dirty books, because I don't want to read that.
I don't know. You can Google it and see what happens. But she just wants so hard for it to be hard science fiction, where it's like The Martian, where the entire story is the hardships of actually trying to live on Mars. And it's just talk to aliens without a helmet. It's fine. Anyway.
She tries to stay grounded in the realism, but like you said, it's so sciencey for me to ignore because I just flip a switch. I don't care. But for someone like you who actually cares about things, I'm sorry I need you to read this book, okay? I love it.
For example, and I went in a complete tangent with this, she mentions, oh, there was a 1958 nuclear program on humans where they were putting uranium in the water to test cancer on people. And I seriously Googled it.
Is it real?
I could not find anything close to what she said. I found in 1955, Inuit natives were given radioactive iodine pills, not what this is talking about. In 1953 to 1957, Massachusetts General Hospital injected terminally ill patients with uranium to test chemotherapy on brain tumors. Not what it was talking about. 1956, mentally disabled children were given radioactive calcium orally. Not what it's talking about.
All of these examples are horrific.
Oh yeah, but there's so many options that she could have gone with, but I could not find anything between 1940 or 1970 that had to do with it. And I'm like, were you making that up? But she was so much grounded into reality. I couldn't find it. I could find a lot of crap that the US government and medical hospitals did that were extremely ethically unsound. That was not one of them.
Her scientist friend told her about it. It's real, guys.
She heard it from someone? I don't know. But that's my example. I don't know how much to take seriously and how much to be like, oh, it's fiction. So we're going to talk about the birds. 2 weeks in, and the birds are the most affected creatures.
Yes, they're all dying.
And I don't understand. Gravity affects big things before it affects little things.
I think she just wanted to make a joke about canaries. If the canary stops singing, then we're dead. The birds are dead. We're dead.
But she also tries to say that wild birds are dying before captive birds?
Yeah, because they don't fly. Captive birds stay in a cage. They don't have to fly. Evolution. Science. Oh, yeah.
I just don't understand why any of this happened. And then there's stuff like, oh, you can't kick a soccer ball as high as you used to because it's heavier, which makes me think it's gravity related. But apparently, no, it's this mysterious third force that affects gravity and inertia. But we're not going to ever mention inertia. We'll talk about gravity a bit, though. I don't understand. And the more it goes on, she'll actually talk about scientific principles. And I'm trying to find, I have so many red notes. This makes it hard.
I have such a vague understanding of science. I think me and the author could be in a science class together and we would both get A's. Like science for dummies. Yeah, winners. It's me and Karen Thompson Walker.
It's just a bunch of little things with the science. And like I said, you don't care about the science, so we're kind of just getting it out of the way. They have a power crisis, and I'm just like, just invest in solar energy. Like crazy. You have, at this point, 58 hours of sun? There you go.
They do eventually all get greenhouses and that kind of stuff.
It takes them way too long. And she mentions, okay, I don't know specifically what it's about. I just know from my note, I said, the author knows nothing about the beef and dairy industry. I think it was, oh, we can't have meat anymore because they can't be outside. And I'm just like, they're in barns inside because they're in Wisconsin and it is freezing.
Put them inside.
The current beef and dairy industry are well made for keeping the cows inside and safe and happy.
Even assuming, oh, you can't have beef anymore. That's fine. Whatever. Chickens are super easy to keep. Everybody can have a chicken in their house.
Truth.
They make such a big deal about stuff. The grapes, that one was kind of funny because grapes already are kind of expensive now for the dumb fruit. But she's like, that was the last grape I ever had because her flashy friends, the mom gets a new boyfriend who's rich and then they're over there just eating grapes. And she's like, oh, that was the last one I ever ate in my whole life. Grapes might come back.
I hate the author's need for foreshadowing like that.
Yeah.
Every chapter, I swear there was something and it was like, and I didn't know that was the last time I would eat X, or, and I didn't know it was about to get worse, or, and I didn't know that's the last time we'd ever talk to each other. And it's like, I get the point.
Yeah, that's my question for the author for later. But literally, why? I think she thought it was making more of an impact, but because we know she's alive, at least old enough to tell this story, because she clearly is an adult telling this story. She tries to stay 11, but none of her references make any sense. Like, she's too old. And then she does the foreshadowing thing and like hints about her entire life and the entire world. Okay, but be 11 if you're gonna do this. I do think some of the moments were good. I don't know, the grape one hit me in the gut. I was like, oh my god, she's never gonna eat a grape again. What? But that's also dumb. That's how I like my books, to make me sad.
And like I said, there's just a bunch of random small things, like apparently because the earth is slowing, that causes earthquakes in Kansas because tectonic plates.
Yeah, vague science, that's fine.
And that's probably more plausible than some of the other stuff, but it's just you build it up over time.
No, overnight, an hour added to your day.
And she keeps talking about how the magnetic pole poles are being destroyed because of gravity, and that's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. There's a specific scientific effect that she's like, oh, this is totally a thing. The dynamo effect. So the magnetic fields are breaking apart, and then she misstates the dynamo effect because she's like, oh, the dynamo effect is the reason the magnetic poles are breaking down because gravity is heavier / there's a third unknown force that causes gravity to be heavier.
Yeah, that's definitely how people talk and think.
The dynamo effect has to do with the Earth's inner core, causing convection in the outer core, which is what creates the magnetic field. Apparently, according to this author, gravity cools the inner core and causes the dynamo effect to break down, so no more magnetic poles. And I'm like, that's not how this works. Hot liquids going in circles in the middle of the planet has nothing to do with gravity. There is no connection between the dynamo effect and gravity, and there's no reason something that would affect gravity to also affect the dynamo effect. Also, we can just get it out there, the Earth's rotation is inertia, not gravity. So stop talking about gravity. The only thing that scientists think would ever stop the rotation to this effect is if something rammed into us. Because, things stay in motion unless acted upon by a equal or bigger force.
I know that one.
And oh my gosh, frickin' radiation
is intense.
This author does not know the difference between UV rays and radiation. Okay, so the magnetic field is being weakened, which causes a higher amount of radiation to come in from the atmosphere. And to solve this problem, people just start going out at night. And I'm like, radiation doesn't just magically go away because the sun's not out. That is not what this is at all. Has she heard of Chernobyl? Does she know the half-life of radiation is ridiculously high? If radiation is coming in, it's not just going away because it's dark out. And then, so they all have blackout curtains or whatever because radiation. And then she looks out the curtains with regularity.
Into a telescope.
Her obsession with spying on her neighbors is creepy.
To be fair, she's a lonely only child. Her mom uses her as a crutch to emotionally abuse her, or emotional incest, I think is the one that she kind of does, because her husband isn't there. And so she's like, oh, you're 11, you are now my best friend.
She has no friends.
She just
The mom has no friends. I will say I was a little bit snarky in my notes, and I actually do really like this one. So it's called The Age of Miracles because somewhere in the book, the narrator's like, oh, middle school, the Age of Miracles. BS.
Yeah.
First of all, no miracles was happening in middle school. That was hell.
Yeah, the joke was something about, it's not a joke, she says it very seriously, but I take it as a joke.
She means it. She means it very seriously.
She means it so hard, though. But girls turn into women, and they learn how to be real people and real women. And the Age of Miracles, because how can we transform? Like, our bodies change and our friendships change.
Yeah, that's not a miracle, honey. That is terrible.
Yeah.
But I made a note where I was just like, so is the miracle that they don't die from cancer immediately? Is that what Age of Miracle is?
In this story, maybe. But that's not what she means. She literally means puberty. Wow. Girls are women now.
So there's a bad solar storm to continue with the radiation, and it's messing with the electricity and stuff. And that, of course, means heavy amounts of radiation is entering. And so their response is just to go around and close the windows. And I'm like, oh, so radiation is now being stopped by a piece of cloth?
It's definitely not radiation. It's UV rays.
Yeah, so do we need to go back to chemistry, honey? The 3 types of radiation. Alpha radiation can be stopped by a piece of paper. Beta radiation can be stopped by an inch of wood. Gamma, which is what we're dealing with, needs like a foot of concrete.
Nope, don't care.
And she really plays it off later when she's the adult and it's supposed to be the epilogue or whatever, and she's like, yeah, we're probably all gonna get cancer or something. And I'm just like,
Yeah, we could.
What is this book?
I don't know. She tries way too hard for not backing any of it up, I think, is my issue. Oh, I found it. This is the quote. This is middle school, the age of miracles, the time when kids shot up 3 inches over the summer, when breath bloomed from nothing, when voices dipped and dove. Our first flaws were emerging, but they were being corrected. That is what she thinks is miraculous.
That actually sounds really creepy.
Yeah, and I think some of it is because the narrator is in her at least 20s, but I don't know. I think it's the author bleeding through and being a weirdo.
It's really weird.
There's some kind of line. She said something about, oh, girls just don't know how to get a hand job. They're not born knowing how to. They have to learn. And she's so jealous of her, not her friend, but this girl in her class. And what a weird thing for an 11-year-old to think and say. And
see, that is one of my notes because it's really uncomfortable for me as an adult.
It's so out of pocket.
Thinking about children in sexual settings, and it's not like, oh yeah, sex happens. No, there's a line between knowing, hey, kids are starting to explore that stuff, and especially Michelle because her mom is hot trash, but it's something completely different to be told, hey, this person is learning how to give a hand job.
Yeah.
At 11.
11 years old. Like, I get guys, from what vague research I've done, guys when they hit puberty, usually about 11 or 12, they go exploring, whatever. But girls typically are not as active until they're closer to 13, which still is a baby, by the way.
It's just the way the author doesn't address it. She just states it like, oh, facts of life. And it's like, excuse me?
You're a weirdo. No.
This is an 11-year-old who may or may not be being sexually abused by her mom because her mom is way too open about those topics.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about how women just don't grow up knowing how to do it. It's weird.
It's so weird. That line specifically sticks out to me. Most of the other stuff is her one friend. It's Michaela. She is a little bit promiscuous. She has an older boyfriend. And then actually her other friend has one too. What was the other girl?
Hannah?
No. Hannah's the good Mormon girl. There was another vague friend. She doesn't have any real friends.
She really doesn't.
I don't know. There's a third girl.
Oh yeah, the friend that met the guy online, and then that was another thing where it's like, okay, if you want to talk about 11-year-old girls meeting older guys on websites and how it can be dangerous, fine, do that. She doesn't.
Yeah, no, she never says like, oh, it was bad, or you see concern from the parents, because the parents come looking for the little girl. I cannot remember her name.
But I am convinced Julia is a sociopath. She is so detached from everything going on in her life. It's actually very disconcerting.
Some of it, I think, is hard for me because I grew up with a lot of siblings, and there was always chaos, so my house kind of reminded me of Hannah's house, the Mormon girl who has a ton of sisters. And here's poor little Julia with no friends or family and just a mom who's constantly there. She does have a dad and a grandpa, but
not to the same levels.
Yeah, so it's literally just her and her mom, but mostly her by herself because half the time there's a scene with her and her mom, she leaves the room or she'll go and be like, okay, bye, and then go to her room.
So maybe it's because I lived that life as an only child with just my mom. Julia is a sociopath. Okay, so we've talked about the science for as much as I'm probably going to talk about the science unless something pops up. But you're like, hey, just ignore the science. Focus on the story. There is no story. Julia is not the main character. She does not do anything. She doesn't even get a last name. That's how little importance she has. Everything that happens in this book is just her observing other people's lives.
Yeah, she definitely is a spectator.
So it's not a coming of age story because Julia doesn't do anything. She's the most boring character in this. Hannah's way more interesting because she's got religious stuff going on and moving to Utah and making friends and then not moving to Utah and then moving to Utah again. And I have so many questions, but that's just because I don't think this author knows how Mormons work either. But beside the point, I mean, she couldn't figure out her science. I wasn't expecting her to figure out religion.
That's right.
Anyway. But that's way more interesting. And then, yeah, there's that one friend who's rebelling against her mom and meets a boy who turns out is actually a 16-year-old boy. I was shocked.
Which is still gross, guys.
Very.
She is 11 years old. You are a, sophomore, junior in high school, maybe?
Yeah, there are times when, because they are developing so quickly, it's inappropriate. It'll be fine when you're 26 and he's 31, not when you're 11.
But the problem, the author, because she's 11, doesn't see any point in it, any problems. She's just like, oh yeah, he was 16 and he lived in a cult.
Even though she's telling the story as a 23-year-old.
Yeah, she's an adult. She knows better. Looking back, she should say something. She says stuff about everything else.
Like I said, it's not even the others being non-judgmental or something. It's just not addressed. These really heavy topics, she's just like, oh, I know that's a thing. Plop. Moving on. For example, Julia gets sexually assaulted at the bus stop, and then that is never brought up ever again.
Yes. Even by the crush Seth, Dreamboat Seth, he sees it happen and makes some small little comment or, hey, that's not cool, or get on the bus, or something so stupid that's like, okay, you're not even defending her. I know they're strangers at this point, but he's supposed to be the good guy that we want her to fall in love with and have a cute little childhood romance with.
I was not expecting much out of an 11-year-old boy, honestly.
I mean, he stays pretty true. He rides a skateboard, they kind of talk, and then he gets mad that she doesn't talk to him.
Fair.
He seems pretty realistic, but it definitely was
It just happens. And it's just brushed under, like nothing happens with it. And it's not like in real life, victims don't want to come forward, or they're too shocked, or they're too scared. None of that. If you had skipped 50 pages, there's nothing that it even needed to happen.
I think the author doesn't see it as an assault, because what happens is a mean kid at school, they're waiting for the bus, he lifts her shirt up because she's not wearing a bra, because he's trying to prove she's not wearing a bra.
But the way it's written is still very traumatic.
I think the author doesn't think it is. I think that's why that specific moment is brushed over. But I don't know. She brushes over everything that's terrible, like the 16-year-old and the 11-year-old.
Her dad having an affair and then almost running away with the affair partner, but then not? Question mark? We never come back to that.
Doesn't call him out on it. Julia, the character, but also the author, because she wrote it. But she doesn't call him out on it. Her dad, at all. She doesn't tell her mom about it. It is a secret that now she shares with her dad. The kind of forced trauma that creates by itself, the tension.
But Julia doesn't have enough emotions for it to actually be impactful.
Yeah, she doesn't seem to care about it. I mean, she does. She says a couple of things, but it's only about 10 years after this whole story's taken place, which is enough time to decompress, to really think everything over, to really, hey, this traumatized me. This changed my life. My life could have been completely different if my dad actually left. Nope, just a little side note. Oh, and then dad came back inside, or whatever.
It's to the point where, first of all, I called it really early on in the book that the dad was having an affair with the piano teacher.
Oh, yeah. Well, he makes multiple comments about, of course I was at work. Where else would I be?
Well, not just that, but it was the moment where apparently Sylvia wants to be a real timer, which means, I pretend to be awake for all the time when the sun's out and then be asleep when it's not. And that's dumb in and of itself. But because even in real life, when it's dark outside, you don't just go to bed. But anyway,
yeah,
not the point.
The real timers versus the clock, whatever they call them, clockers.
But it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she wants to become a real timer, and so that makes it hard with piano lessons because everyone else is still following the clock. And so first of all, I don't even think they asked Julia, hey, do you even want to do piano lessons at any point? I don't think Julia really wants to.
They make her take soccer. They make her do piano. She's terrible at both of those things. I think it was just, she's an only child. She needs friends, and clearly wasn't making them at school on her own perform like she should have been. Here's some extracurriculars. Be special so I can show you off.
True. Suburbia. Okay, first of all, that's such suburbia. Anyway, to be fair, she does seem like she actually enjoys soccer, but the piano lessons is like, okay, stop. Either pick another instrument or another art hobby. It's fine. But the mom's like, yeah, we should find you a different piano teacher. And the dad's like, no, we shouldn't. And makes an argument about it. And at that moment, I was like, they're having an affair.
Yeah.
Why do you care so much about this random person that lives across the street? You're having an affair. And then, oh my gosh, shock and surprise. Although you were shocked and surprised.
The first time I read it, something was up with Sylvia for sure, because the way that adult Julia writes about being 11 and a time when Sylvia and the mom are hanging out, like they meet, or I don't think it's for the first time, but the weird way she describes Sylvia as, oh, they're the same age, but she seems girlish. It was a weird dig for so early on in the book. That's before really any hint. I think the dad has been late coming home to work one time or something, and it's in the beginning of the book when they're not on real time yet. But it's the weird way the author, or older Julia, is describing this scene with them. It's like, okay, what is wrong with Sylvia?
Yeah.
Why am I paying attention to her?
And I get it, because it's like, oh, you're 11, and so mentally you are expanding your inner consciousness of what is people, because you start with yourself, and then it's you and mom, and then you, mom and dad, and it's the family, and then the family's super important, but as you grow up, it's like, oh, friends are really important. So she's gone to that point where, oh, friends are really important, but then you go off of that even and start idolizing other people, and it's normal progression. So, okay, yeah, I can understand why she idolizes Sylvia. She's so different from her parents. It's kind of fun. She's nice to her. It makes sense. But yeah, there was, when they were first describing her,
So weird.
this reverence that didn't make sense unless you were trying to make a dig at the mom.
Yeah. So she calls her girlish, even though they're the same age. That, I think, is the phrase.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, she never wears makeup, and she's tanned and freckled and so cool, and she teaches yoga at the Y and gardens a lot. And it was just in comparison with the mom.
Yeah. And of course the mom is a little neurotic, and she clearly knows something's going on. She doesn't know that he's having an affair, but she knows.
I don't want to call her neurotic because she called everything.
Yeah.
Everything the dad was like, oh, you're being emotional and I'm being logical. But in the reality, she was right. Every single time she was right. She was like, hey, we should start stocking up on food. Hey, we should get a greenhouse. Hey, we should start being concerned. She was right every single time. Julia and the dad keep trying to paint this picture like, oh my gosh, my mom is so psychotic and blah, blah. She was right.
Yeah.
Why is no one coming back and realizing this? Vindication for mother. I think her name's Helen. Yeah, it's Helen. The whole thing where it's like, oh, she was a former actress and really popular, but now she's just teaches drama at a local high school. There's just so many digs at the mom.
He's a doctor. He's doing things with his life. Even in the end, Julia decides to become a doctor, even though universities are shut down. She's not sure her degree is really going to do anything, if she's going to ever be able to help anybody. And she's like, nah, I'm going to be like my dad. Yeah, you're a little psycho too. A little sociopath.
It's just, yeah. Ugh. And there could have been a really interesting conversation about how children idolize their parents until one day they learn that their parents are people too. Finding out dad was cheating on mom and was about to abandon their family,
yeah,
would have been a great moment to have all of that. But no.
No, she still idolizes him.
She does not care.
I also feel bad for the mom because the grandpa, it's the dad's dad. He don't care about him at all. Oh, that's my dad. Whatever. But it's the mom who goes and checks up on grandpa and brings Julia with her, and they're besties. They're friends, which is a weird daughter-in-law, father-in-law relationship.
Oh, he knows his son is trash.
Because the dad's so trash, yeah, but nobody says it or acknowledges it, or it's like, oh, he's working.
Which I don't know about California, but that's such a southern thing. I believe that family dynamic, actually. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's justice for Helen.
Yeah, she gets this bad rap from Julia, adult Julia, being mean to her mom.
Which, granted, Helen should not take her adult problems to her 11-year-old child. You are correct. That was wrong. But she really doesn't have any friends. So Helen should have found some friends. But a little part of me wonders how isolated she is because of her husband. I have some questions about the family dynamics. But at no point should Helen have ever taken her adult issues to her 11-year-old child. That was bad. But that's never brought up. That's not the issue with Helen. They just make issues out of non-issue things. And I'm like, there could have been a conversation, an actual coming of age, helping young adults who are similarly going through this cope and understand the world and be like, hey, this isn't okay. But no. This is why this is in the fiction section, okay? It doesn't say anything. So just to go with the me desperately trying to find anything interesting in this book, there's an interesting point that I made. You know, I'm so cool like that. There's a point where everyone's getting a greenhouse and they're the last one on the street to get a greenhouse. And he's super against the idea. And all I could think was, why? Your mistress loves plants. So why wouldn't you be for this? And then it just occurred to me as, well, maybe the appeal of Sylvia isn't because Sylvia is appealing, but it's because it's not his wife. And that's why he's cheating with her.
Oh yeah, basic affair 101.
It has nothing to do with, oh, she's so much better and blah, 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 that in the beginning of the book. Nope, it's just, oh, you're different than my wife. That's good enough, which just makes him even more of a trash person.
Also, she's the next door neighbor. Are you kidding me?
Across the street, man. I don't know where he parks because they never actually decided on that, but he parked forever away and then just walks to the house.
Yeah, because Julia with her creepy spying all the time.
It's a problem.
It's a long time to realize it's her dad and Sylvia together. For someone who's been spying on Sylvia specifically for this long, because she sees a man in the window or something, the blinds are closed one day, but then it's like months before she realizes it's her dad this whole time.
But can we also talk about how the dad's a freaking idiot? Because the first time you know, hey, something's up, is Julia is having a piano lesson and he calls Sylvia. He calls Sylvia during her piano lesson and Sylvia's like, oh, you can't call me right now.
His daughter's piano lesson, not like, oh, any kid who might recognize this man's voice. His literal daughter.
Are you dumb?
Would know his voice if it was picked up on the recording.
It is once a week at the same hour, man. Are you dumb? Affair 101. Don't call during your own child's piano lesson.
For a little bit of it, I thought he wanted to get caught. But then as soon as he does, he backs down and never sees Sylvia again or whatever, and just comes back to his wife and his daughter.
For no reason. They don't actually go into why.
Yeah.
They're just like, yeah, he showed up again.
The grandpa does die, spoilers.
In a very sad way. That's the only time I actually felt like Julia had any emotion in this book.
Her birthday was kind of sad too. Well, I mean, it was part of her birthday, but
that was the only time where I felt like she had genuine human emotions for what was happening around her.
Yeah. I don't know if she's autistic coded or what is happening. I don't think she's actually a sociopath. I think that there's just some kind of disconnect. And you can blame it on, oh, she's an only child, California city.
I think it is legitimately the author does not know how to write a book. She wants to write these purple prose and make it sound all fancy and have all these great lines.
She does have some good lines, to be fair.
But coming out of the voice of an 11-year-old.
Yeah, no, that doesn't make any sense.
And so it's not good.
I think that's why she ended up doing it as the adult voice, but it kind of ruins it for me.
But even as a 23-year-old, that's very introspective for a 23-year-old. As someone who was a 23-year-old not too long ago.
Yeah.
She talking like a 40-year-old woman, is all I'm saying.
There's a terrible disconnect between the author, older Julia, and younger Julia.
And she so desperately wants Seth to be the main character. I kind of wish she had just made Seth the main character.
Yeah, because it's not like he doesn't have a sad life. He could have been a good main character for this Fault in Our Stars type YA middle school book fiction science thing that's happening. His mom dies of cancer. His dad's always busy too. He's got this weird girl who wants to be his girlfriend.
But he actually has passions and desires and things he wants to do. Julia has none of that.
Well, and like the whale. They try and save this whale. And Seth is so on board, so adamant about it. And she's like, oh, I can hang out with Seth? yeah, let's do some whales.
And it's so hard to care about Julia's crush when the world is literally ending.
Yeah, I don't care about her at all.
Because it's not like, oh, we might have the last days, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't happen until like forever later. But it's the beginning of the book, and she's just like, oh my gosh, is my hair frizzy? I'm like, the world is ending.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, they do spend about 3/4 of the book pretending that the world is not ending. Not just Julia, but America, everybody. Some of the science teachers, before they turn into real-timers, everybody's just like, yeah, let's make sundials. Let's just keep going to school. Just ignore the bells. No, clearly something's happened. You guys overnight decided, we're just going to follow this. Half the countries get involved real quick, and they're like, yeah, that's just what we'll do too.
And see, that would have been so much more interesting if she had focused on that, actually. Because it's like, oh, how does the world cope with suddenly this happening and wanting to have stasis versus wanting what is happening and blah, 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 and then through the lens of an 11-year-old. But no, we have to worry about having frizzy hair and then being obsessed with her friend's sexuality.
Yeah, she was really obsessed with Michaela.
Obsessed. Do you have a crush on her? I have questions.
Well, because she has 3 friends. I mean, if you count any of them as friends. Hannah, the good Mormon girl who leaves and is absent for a decent bit of the book and then comes back, but then has made a different friend, so she doesn't care about her.
Which is totally valid because that happens in middle school all the time. Your friend went to summer camp and you didn't go to summer camp, and now she comes back and she has best friend bracelets and so many stories with this person. Like, they've bonded and now it seems like they've grown out of you or something. Like, that happens all the time in middle school. That's what that lifestyle is about.
Yeah, when you're 11.
But it gets so glossed over.
I feel like she dwells in it. I feel like she talks about Hannah more than anything else.
She's bitter. She's way bitter.
Yeah. And then she has Gabby, who's sort of her friend. They like paint nails together one day. And then she's like, I have a secret boyfriend. I'm leaving to go join this real-timers cult. And then she doesn't tell her parents, Gabby's parents, nobody, what is happening until she's gone. It's too late.
And even then, she didn't want to tell.
Yeah. She's like, I guess being loyal, but also they're 11.
See, I didn't think it was loyalty. It really just felt like she didn't care.
Yeah. But she at some point has mentioned something about like, oh, all girls know that people end up in ditches and you gotta protect women and this whole thing. And she's like, but my 11-year-old friend is going to go with a potentially not 16-year-old, even creepier guy.
Which Julia is aware of.
Yeah.
Because she says it in her narrative. She doesn't say it to Gabby.
Yeah.
She just says it in her narrative.
She's like, he's probably not even 16. That's a good situation. Is, oh, he's only 16. Only 5 years older than me.
Which is still pedophilia.
So cool.
Maybe I should have put that in the content warning.
That's her second friend, who also, none of these are good friends to her. And then her third friend, Michaela, is the one who was basically the trailer trash. And then her mom gets a new rich boyfriend. And then suddenly she has a gate code to get into her house.
Well, no, let's talk about why the mom is trash. So she is a single mom and she's a lot younger. Fine, whatever. And she dates around a lot. Fine, whatever. But she brings the men home to have sex with them while the child is in the house. All of them. And then she meets a new rich guy. They've dated for 2-3 months. And she moves her and her child into his house immediately.
And he has a teenage son, too.
Yep.
And she has no concerns about her daughter's safety or potential anything, because she does not know this man, let alone his son. Either of them, they could be predators. Both of them. The son and the dad. And the dad don't care.
No, that's why she trashed. And like I said, I do still stand by, I think she's sexually abusing Michaela because she is so open and honest about sexuality to a point where Michaela is potentially exploring earlier than would be appropriate for her. And in ways that are definitely not appropriate. As we learn about an 11-year-old giving handjobs to people and the way she acts and stuff, it is just, ooh, this is not good. And inviting Julia over to distract the brother, maybe, so she can hang out with her boyfriend.
Who clearly is not 11 or 12.
Yeah, except they just let her hide for forever, and then the stepbrother tries to make moves on her and it doesn't work, and so they just leave her in there for forever.
Yeah, she definitely read that Ray Bradbury story and was like, how can I incorporate this into my book? Oh, have her hide in a closet.
Yeah. And then she'll have moments where it's, oh, televangelists are talking about the end of time times and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, there are definitely would be people like that potentially taking advantage of the situation because televangelists. But I feel like every time she brings up religion, it's just to be super religion bashy.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Because every time there's a religious person, they're religious. Anyway, that's also something.
Yeah.
But going back to Seth, it is really hard to care about this relationship when they don't even talk until 63% of the book is done.
Oh my goodness, is it that far into the book?
It is that far in the book.
Yeah.
And she's too busy being fake deep. Here's an example that I wrote down. Julia compares having the same house in the same neighborhood as two people growing up the same and coming out different. That's what she uses with Gabby. She's like, oh, my house is set up exactly the same as hers, but we're two completely different people. Yeah, because the house had nothing to do with your upbringing. Your parents are completely different. You are different people.
Yeah, she's really dumb.
Why are you like, oh, I am so insightful. We're so different. Duh. But no, we have to go on those rants for a while, so we can't talk to Seth until like 63% of the way through the book.
And she kind of stalks him too.
She's a creep. She's a clingy creep. Like all 11-year-old girls. But like I said, it's just Julia's way of narrating other people's lives. She has to be there. She has to see things or nothing happens in the book. But she's a creeper. And she brings up his dead mom randomly all the time.
A couple of times. It's not just, oh, one time and it's so embarrassing. The first time she's kind of trying to apologize and be like, hey, I see you, be my friend, which he does not react well to. So she's like, oh, yeah, your mom's dead, right?
Yeah, she keeps bringing it up in her narration. The first time they go to their house and she's like, oh, we're having a normal conversation, blah, 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 blah. Oh my gosh, this is the house that his mom died in. Where did that come from?
She's a little bit morbid, but not in the
realistic way.
It doesn't seem like it's super morbid. It seems like, oh, that's just the natural thought of process of kids, the way the author's trying to make you think it is, but
it's weird.
So weird. And that's kind of how I wondered if she was a little bit autistic coded.
I hope the author did not try to do that.
Or maybe the author might be, or something, because there just are no social cues for this 11-year-old at all.
I stand by, she just doesn't know how to write people.
Yeah, I don't know.
But then because they start talking and we're already 63% of the way through the book, they have to become friends really fast.
They save a whale. They're so cute. I'm seeing a clip. Adorable.
Yeah, she's in the library because she doesn't have any friends, and then Seth is there one day, and then they actually talk to each other for the first time. It is 190 pages into this book.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're so in love, guys.
Yeah, and then they become best friends forever because I guess they're both really socially starved. Fair. I read a physical copy of this book, and it's your physical copy, and that you had notes in there, and I wrote down one of your notes.
Oh my goodness. I had a lot of dumb points to make.
But your quote, and it was very good. Birds dead, whales dead, humans next. Don't care. Hung out with my crush.
Yes, I stand by that.
It's true. That is the summary of the book right there. And just to add to that, this is why Julia doesn't feel like a real person. She does not have the ability to be emotionally complex. She can't be like, oh, I'm worried about the world, but also I'm spending time with my crush. So maybe if the world hadn't ended, we wouldn't have been together. At least that mindset? No. Only crush.
Okay. Yeah. It's difficult to like Julia. I mean, I don't like her. I don't hate her like you do.
There's nothing to hate. There's nothing there. It's a shell of a person. But yeah, so they hang out that one time with the whale, and then Seth doesn't talk to her, and she's being really clingy. So I kind of don't blame him at the time, because like I said, she's But then she's like, oh, he didn't talk to me. I'm so mad at him. And eventually I think she confronts him, and he's like, you didn't try to talk to me either. And I was like, thank you.
To be fair, the day that he doesn't talk to her is her birthday.
How is he supposed to know?
No, I know, but it's so sad for her, though.
Oh my gosh.
But you were addressed. You were being weird.
She was being weird. Julia, accept your part in this responsibility.
So sad for her, because usually the girls in that school, They bring a big birthday balloon, and it's so cute, and they basically parade around. And another girl had her birthday and had 2 balloons, and nobody brought her a balloon. And not gonna lie, every time I read this, I cry at that part, because I have a lot of emotional issues that I need to work through that I have not, about probably middle school, so.
Fair.
So I like this stupid book, okay?
Which, speaking of which, that also comes around the point they work it out or whatever. She practices for hours what to say, and then she doesn't say anything. And I get it. Maybe, I don't know. I wasn't that person. I can't imagine doing that. I know that's a stereotype in teenage movies and stuff, but I don't know. I just can't personally connect to that. And so I was like, yeah, you're being weird. Anyway, so we're 76% of the way through this book, and Seth and Julia are finally friends because the author was too busy telling us about the magnetic poles to get to a point. And then she talks about wheat points. And anyway, just, well, I promise not to talk about the science anymore.
Yeah, you've already had your time. No more science.
Although there are electricity rations, and I don't understand because, once again, just solar investments. That would solve your AC problems at least. Maybe you can't store it for all of the nighttime, but at least you can have AC during the day. Anyway.
Yeah.
They get invites to Michaela's, which I'm glad you said her name out loud because I keep thinking her name is Michelle.
Yeah, it looks dumb when you read it.
But I don't like the turn it takes because it's like, oh, Michaela invites them both to their party, but actually she just really wants Seth there. And Seth is like, well, I'm not going to go. And that's what it takes for Julia to get some self-respect and be like, you know what? Michaela's actually not a good friend.
Yeah. And at this point, she's already done the thing with the stepbrother and her boyfriend and like, oh, I only invited you because my mom said I needed someone trustworthy to be here with the boys, which is a garbage move, first of all. But they're not friends. And she gets so high and mighty about, oh, Seth and I aren't going to come to your party. And of course, Michaela's like mad because it's like, oh, well, that's super popular. He should go. And it's like, how is he popular? He hasn't hung out with anybody but this weirdo girl for like a month.
I think he's just cute.
Yeah, they did establish that he was really cute, apparently.
So this is around the part where the whole UV thing happens. And I only bring that up because that's actually part of the plot is they sunbathe outside. And I'm like, okay, cool, you guys are dead. And then later on, he gets a gravity sickness and it's like, oh, what's happening? And I'm like, you got cancer because you're dumb. That is unexcusable levels of, oh, there's radiation outside. Let's sunbathe. I can't. And I also don't understand because they still are doing the clock thing, right? And so every once in a while, they'll have to go to school during the day. And they're like, oh, we have lead coverings for the school bus. And I'm like, but what does the bus driver use? He still has to see out the window. That still brings in radiation. Screw the kids in the front seats. And what are they doing at the bus stops? Why are we not just doing online learning?
No.
Because I don't think this book takes place in 2012. I think it's supposed to be a little bit in the future or something, because sometimes they'll say stuff. But then at the same time, they'll have blackboards.
Yeah, that's so old school. You don't even have fancy whiteboard erase teleprompter ones.
You could have projection thingies. I don't know. I don't understand what's happening. Anyway, so they just hang out at Seth's house and do whatever, and then they're sneaking around during the day because why not? And that's when she catches Sylvia and her dad escaping. And her dad is, I am convinced, a sociopath. I say Julia's a sociopath. The dad is a sociopath because, oh, my child, you have found me trying to run away with my mistress. Bye. Doesn't even take her with him. She's just like, nope, sucks. Just walk home, child.
Yeah, he's trying to sneak out in the middle of the night, too. Or whatever, day, night, whatever it was for them.
Yeah, it was day, but because clock time, it was technically night.
Yeah, but he wasn't going to leave a note for his daughter, for his wife.
Nope.
Going to disappear. And I think already the grandpa had disappeared.
Yes, the grandpa had already disappeared. They find out he is dead, I think later that day.
Yeah, it's the only reason the dad comes back, for sure.
Maybe. I don't know why he comes back, honestly.
I don't think he had a change of heart. I think it was the dad was dead, and then he selfishly probably needed to be with family, and then he just came back. I don't think he was like, oh man, my daughter might actually need me. She'll tell my wife. I won't get a clean getaway.
Because this whole time, the mom is sick.
Yeah, he's such a jerk.
And also, he has a blatant disregard for his work. At no points is he like, oh no, I'm worried about my work. Because he is a high-risk OBGYN.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, babies don't stop being born, dude. Nope, too important to cheat on my wife. But now all of a sudden, if not cheating on my wife, Sylvia doesn't show back up.
Super weird. I don't know how that happened.
But as soon as the dad's dead, he's so on board with everything. Like, he buys a gun. He's ready. Okay. Then everything gets worse. Mom is sick. The dad and mom have a weird stalemate relationship thing going on. And then the dad and Julia play soccer one day. And then the dad tries to wax poetic and is like, oh, paradoxes are real. And that somehow has something to do with him and Sylvia.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening. And then Seth is getting worse. Like, his nose starts bleeding and whatever.
I will say the only good thing the dad does. So at some point, the mom gets in a hit and run because she has the slurring sickness, and she had, I think, half a glass of champagne or something, and she basically blacks out driving and hits a pedestrian, the homeless guy. A lot of people, like witnesses, have said he jumped right in front of her, like suicide cult, because there were a lot of that had ended up in the ER with that same kind of thing. The mom freaks out and does research and like is panicking, and of course the dad's not there to comfort her or do anything. But a while later, like months later, he lies and is like, yeah, that guy's fine. Like, I talked around at the hospital. And then the mom's mood and her sickness improves a little bit and she gets better, and of course the daughter knows it's a lie and she doesn't call him out on it, but she doesn't call him out on anything, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that.
But that's the only good thing I think this guy does in this entire book.
I think it's very symbolic of their relationship. If I was going to actually put any literary merit behind anything in this book.
Like, it is another secret for the daughter to have to keep.
And the dad is, of course, lying to the mom, and she's way too frail to handle the truth because she's so emotional.
To be fair, she is.
But she's not! She's right!
She's making herself sick, thinking she killed this guy, which, I mean, she did.
Fair!
But, I don't know. Does the pros outweigh the cons on this?
It's all trash. Burn it with fire. And then Seth just gets sick, and then his dad is like, I'm gonna take him to Mexico? Okay. So he takes him to Mexico, and so Julia and Seth are emailing because they're totally in love, guys, at this point. Does that make sense? And this is where it's like, oh, the Fault in Our Stars vibe, tragic love. The email servers go down, and so she's like, oh, I don't know if he died or if we just lost contact, but, you know.
I'm 12 now, guy. I had a birthday. Kind of a big deal for me.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes I don't know if the main character is supposed to be wise beyond her years because she's 23. But as you find out at the end of the book, you don't even realize that's what's happening.
Which is not that old. It's not that far in the future for her to be telling this. Oh, and then the stars did something, or we sent out things to aliens, like the...
Yeah, she just gets hung up on the stupidest things to wax poetic about stuff, and I'm just like, you're dumb. One of the first times you meet Seth, she's like, oh, his t-shirt was badly wrinkled, as if in his home, the folding of laundry had become a lost art, an outmoded custom turned obsolete by suffering. Honey, he's an 11-year-old boy! Even if they did fold laundry, he would still be wearing a crinkled shirt.
Nope, she just wanted to talk about his dead mom again. Again. How can I bring this up?
But that's the purple prose in this.
I don't know, I love it. I don't care.
It was so... It sounds great, question mark. I actually don't think that one hit very well.
Tried way too hard.
But that's basically what this book is. And I would call it a trappings more than anything else because it tricks you. You think it's good, but it just sounds good. It's not real good. But oh my goodness, can we talk about how sketch this book is? The publishing side. So this woman, this is her debut novel, by the way, 2012.
Yeah, her other book sucks.
She was prepaid. So before the book even came out, 6 figures for this book. And you're like, weird. Why? Well, you see, she was working as a full-time editor for Simon & Schuster while she was writing this book. And then all of a sudden, she just has this book contract for 6 figures. Oh, that's weird. I wonder if you had a bunch of contacts in the publishing industry and that's why this happened.
Did she?
Duh, that's the only way she got 6 figures on a debut novel. And then then my cynical side, maybe some of the super hype and great praises weren't necessarily, oh, this is a great book, but maybe because they were putting hecka money behind it. If they gave this woman a 6-figure advance, there's no way they're not putting extremes into marketing. They're gonna get that money back. It's sketch is all I'm saying. You hear about books that make it popular because they have been the chosen child and not necessarily because they're good. That's all I'm saying.
I believe that.
It's sketch. No trust. Side eye. And it's front and center on the Wikipedia page, too. It was nominated for a bunch of literary awards, but it didn't win any.
Shocker.
Just like, interesting. There's so many things about this book where it's like, so how much of this was you and how much of it was your publisher? Because it was freaking Random House in the US.
It's a New York Times bestseller. It says so right on the cover.
And it was Simon & Schuster in the UK. Weird. The company she was working for as a full-time editor? Odd. No trust. So sketchy.
What are the chances you're going to read the other book? It's not a sequel.
I refuse.
Oh my goodness. The science on that is so much worse. And I don't care about science at all. But basically the premise of that book is suddenly a college girl falls asleep and doesn't wake up. She's just vaguely in a sleeping coma because it's called The Dreamer. And then like half the town just falls into the sleeping coma.
Which is a very common sci-fi trope.
Yeah, the whole town. It is kind of a little bit more interesting because there's not one main character. It's told from like a bunch of people, and then by the end of it, most of those people have obviously become dreamers. And then one kid, him and his little friends have to save everybody, and there's like a fire, basically trick their bodies into waking up. But the main girl, the first one who falls asleep, she was pregnant but didn't know it, and her family is super religious, and obviously they keep the baby, so she gives birth and that doesn't wake her up.
That even woke up with the original Sleeping Beauty. Come on. That's really creepy. Why do you feel the need to write a situation like that? Once again, religious bashing.
No, it definitely is. Because the parents are very religious and end up keeping the baby, and they're like, oh, well, at least we'll have a part of our daughter. And you guys could have tried harder to save your daughter. She did not have to give birth like this. I mean, because they C-section, obviously, because she can't give birth. Her body doesn't know what to do.
Which I could totally see being like, oh, we need to try to save the baby even if we can't save our kid. But yeah, for them to be like, well, we gave up.
Yeah, we've got a part of her. It's fine. Don't care.
That's weird. That's not normal.
But that doesn't make her wake up, but there's a fire and they all panic and wake up, I think.
Oh my gosh.
I've only listened to it one time. It's not a book I care about. I do not have a physical copy. But I was like, oh, Karen Thompson Walker has another book. Let me see what this one's about.
Also trash.
Don't bother.
Apparently, the astrophysicist they paid off. Oh, I mean, she let read her work.
He definitely exists, guys. He's not even fake.
Won't put his name anywhere, but he's not fake.
So real, guys.
Anyway, I'm not salty and suspicious at all. Super bitter.
I'm just saying, she has concept books that are terrible.
She should just write short stories then. Sci-fi has lived and breathed and evolved thanks to this short story. It's fine. Concept books are fine. You don't need to write a 365-page book and get paid 6 figures in advance because you know people.
Yeah, you could make it shorter.
And then the whole publishing world is confused and it's just like fiction.
Yeah, no genre.
She also has a weird habit of not naming the important characters and then giving the randomest characters full names and backstories. The main character does not have a last name. Hannah, the best friend, does not have a last name. Michaela does not have a last name. But let's name literally every child in the Orthodox Jew family.
Yeah, that is weird. I don't think she talks to a single one of them. She's just like, oh, there's the Steinmetz, whatever their last name is.
Kaplan. And they're like, oh, Mr. and Mrs. Kaplan, and then Jacob, Beth, Aaron, and the baby.
Yeah.
Why? Sylvia doesn't have a last name. Gabby doesn't have a last name.
Seth has a last name. He's
Marino. Ooh. But let's give Drew Costello a last name because he's a randomly, possibly sexually active child. That is all the notes I have on him.
Don't know him.
Also, every single woman in this book has a braid. I don't know why she kept doing that.
I did not notice that. I noticed a couple of them had one.
Almost everyone. Michaela doesn't doesn't have one because she has red hair, because she's wild and hairism. But everyone else has a braid. Sylvia has a braid. Hannah has a braid. I think Julia has a braid.
Dun, dun, dun.
This is weird. Anyway, I don't even know how to wrap up into general thoughts. I think I've said just about everything I have to say about this book. I'm glad you like it, and it has brought you some inklings of feeling.
I've read it 5 or 6 times. I've done the audiobook, I think, twice now.
I don't understand.
I just don't care. I love it. I don't know. I was in high school, college when I read this for the first time. It's not like, oh, like it's with Uglies. I read that young and it just stuck with me. I know it's stupid. I don't care. But I read that at a pivotal moment. And I guess maybe because I was transitioning from the comfort of high school into the strangeness of college, maybe that's what my brain tricked me into thinking I was middle school feel.
I think it just sounded pretty.
I don't know. Yeah, I do. I like it. I'm probably going to read it again in a year. I do like the audiobook.
One question for the author. You already said why.
Yeah, I already had my question. But why in the world did you make her a slightly 23-year-old / 11-year-old for this book as the point of view? That made no sense and was dumb.
It really didn't. She doesn't provide any sort of, thinking back on my time. It's really sterile for someone telling their own childhood. It's just void of emotion.
Yeah, she definitely should have dated a kid, and then at the end,
an epilogue.
Yeah. Oh, it's been 10 years since the start of this all, and then she could have done all of the things that she does at the end. Like, oh, I still remember the last grape I ate with Michaela. Still could have had that impactful moment.
I don't know. I think she was really hunting that Fault in Our Stars money.
Because that was about 2012, wasn't it?
Let's see.
Forever ago? Was it later than that?
I think that's when the movie... Okay, so the movie came out in 2014. It would have to be sooner than that.
Yeah, not too much longer. It basically immediately got turned into a movie because it was awesome. I mean, sad and YA and...
I mean, if you're into that.
Yeah, which a lot of people were.
Yeah, it came out in January 2012. And supposedly this book took her 4 years to write. So maybe not specifically Fault in Our Stars money, but there were a lot of those types of books coming out around that time is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I just want to know why she's so defensive about the science. It's okay. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be super scientific to be sci-fi. Edgar Allan Poe wrote about going to the moon in a hot air balloon. It's okay.
Yeah.
But no. Very defensive. Very quick to point out that an astrophysicist gave their okay with it. Very quick to point out, oh, realism is so important to me. Okay. I don't understand. But okay. Rating.
I'm gonna give it the world is falling apart, but I don't care because my crush gave me a kiss out of 10.
Really? Because I gave it a boring apocalypse out of 10.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. Would you read it again? You've already said yes. I am not. I refused.
Surprise, guys.
I have no desire to revisit this. I think I have gleaned all I want to know from this first time around.
Fair.
Super efficient reader over here.
One and done.
But, have you read this book? Would you consider this young adult or adult? Do you have any book recommendations for us? Tell us all about it in the comments below. If you like our video, hit like. And if you're enjoying yourself, hit subscribe for more. Thank you for exploring the Age of Miracles with us. I'm Sam Reiner.
And I'm Danielle.
And we hope to see you and a friend here next time. Escape With Me Bookclub is a Lunar Skulk production. Check us out on TikTok or Instagram to keep up to date with us. Lunar_SKULK.